George at Hypno Comics for SLICEnews.com. We're here for It's Comic Book Day with Matt Hawkins from Top Cow and Rahsan Ekedal. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it.
Awesome.
Oh, Rahsan.
Rahsan.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I needed to know that. What nationality is that?
It's Northern California hippie.
I like it. Good. We'll take that.
How often do you get that? I heard 3 people asking that today. What nationality are you?
Like every person who meets me, so eventually it comes out.
All right, we're here doing a think tank book signing, and so we've got these guys here. Matt is just back from India.
Yes, sir.
He was over there at the comic book convention that they throw over there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience that you had?
Oh, it was wild. It's a whole different world over there. I tell you, it's an interesting place. I was in New Delhi, and there's so many people. I mean, 50,000 fans came in through the show, and just a rabid audience for American pop culture. You know, it's like, and they love DC books there. I think Marvel doesn't have much penetration, so it's interesting. You go and you look at every book there is DC,
right?
You know, and so everybody's a Batman fan, but they don't really know who even the Avengers are. So
that's interesting.
It's an interesting difference, you know. And it was an outdoor con, which I'd never been to. You know, we had a booth. They kept calling it a stall.
All right.
What stall are you in? I'm like,
and you guys sold everything.
Yeah, we sold out of everything we brought, which we were the only publisher to do that, so it felt good.
That's good.
So.
That's good. All right. So let's talk about Think Tank. We've got a really good fan base for it here. Hopefully there was a good turnout for you guys.
It's great. Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for coming up. So the concept of Think Tank, it's very science driven. How did you come up with the concept? Was it a collaboration at first, or?
Well, there was a collaboration once we decided to start working on it, and a lot of development happened, and all the character designs were his. And but early, I started developing Think Tank about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And a lot of it was I always liked Crichton's books, and I noticed there was sort of an empty space in the marketplace after he passed away, and I'm like, someone needs to do this, so I'll give it a shot. And I have a background in science, physics major, so I figured I can do some sort of real sci-fi, real science.
Right.
And at the same time, I'm obviously passionate about the project. I want to develop something and possibly trick people into learning something.
Yeah. Well, it says right on the cover.
Yeah.
Danger. Reading this book's going to make you smarter.
It's a little on the nose. I actually didn't come up with that. A retailer friend of mine, Jimmy J, came up with that idea. If you know Jimmy.
Yeah.
He came up with that, and he said that to me. And when I was talking to him about the book, and he's like, "Oh, you can use that if you want." I'm like, "Okay."
That's great. That's great. So on that note, I just, because I've been reading the floppy issues. Now we've got the collected here, and I noticed that Larry Marder wrote the introduction.
Yes, sir.
Bean wrote, and he says that you can pick a lock and crack safe.
Yes.
Is that true?
That is true.
Really? What circumstances were those?
I have, I joke. I told my girlfriend, my fiance, that I'm a ninja, and she said, "Well, if that was true, then you wouldn't wake me up every time you got out of bed." And I was like, "Oh, that's a fair point."
Fair.
But no, that was in my jaded youth.
Okay.
I grew up on military bases all around the world, so you pick up odd skills.
You're right. All right. Rahsan, tell me about like the character designs, and I know you guys are doing it black and white, which is I think great. I know that you guys mentioned earlier that really doesn't affect the printing costs or anything. So black and white. You did that on Echoes too. Which
Yeah, I
is
did
a
on
great book. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I did that on Echoes, and I think that must have been what kind of gave Matt the idea to bring me on.
Yeah.
David Lauren is the main character of Think Tank, and he's this slacker genius.
Right.
And so designing him basically was just like come up with the sloppiest guy that you can think of. Like this. He doesn't wash his hair, doesn't shave. He doesn't really change his clothes. He just wears his sweats and his t-shirt around the lab, and
he doesn't wear shoes.
He never even bothers to wear shoes.
No, see, that's the funniest thing. We had done all 4 issues. It wasn't until he drew the cover to the trade paperback that I noticed that he wasn't wearing shoes. I mean, 4 issues, and I didn't notice this. And I went back and I looked, and I'm like, he's never wearing shoes. I'm like, I remember I asked you that. I'm like, and he's like, yeah, I don't. I just thought it would be. I'm like, okay.
Nice.
The ones he wore shoes when he had to go outside.
Oh, to the bar.
Issue 3, and the bar. But when he's in the lab, he's always in socks. You'll notice it's one of the little Easter eggs of the book.
So the tech how do you feel about like drawing some of the tech? A lot of research involved because you back it up with links, which I really dig.
Right.
The tech and the science, and it's pretty frightening stuff, like we talked about earlier. So.
Yeah, Matt will often send me a link, to give a sort of starting point with the tech, because you do have to make up a lot of it, or at least extrapolate from things that exist now, and then kind of twist it and advance it. So starting out drawing the book, that was actually, a little bit intimidating. Like, can I handle all this tech? Like, because I haven't drawn that much at once in any single project until this. So, but actually, it's turned into quite a fun thing for me because I can just spend some time finding reference material that works for it. Robotics or whatever is needed for that scene and that tech, and then just put my own little twist on it. But it is a challenge because we want it to look realistic and practical. So I don't make everything look too flashy, and that's on purpose because I want it to look like inventions and technology that is in development, really. So it's a lot of times you can see the wires or the visual design of it isn't necessarily sleek. It's like
it's conceivable and
it's they're putting it into use in the field for military application, and it's not meant to look like a consumer product.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
And if each issue, I've tried to actually put new tech in every issue, so it'll be interesting. I mean, I've done that on purpose, where it's like try to do something new and different. Like in the 6th issue, we play with 3D printers, which we haven't done previously. And the 5th issue was some genetic testing equipment, and I
think we start every issue with kind of a new
tech.
That's the twist. It's you kind of look at a book and see what people respond to. And look, I've worked on things for years. We've done 160 some issues of Witchblade, and there's certain things where if I had to draw every single one of those and I was an artist or a writer, it would get old very quickly. And I've noticed working with writers and artists that work on long-term projects, they tend to get bored after a while with certain things, particularly when it's repetitive. You know what I mean? So I sort of conceived of that when I'm thinking it like, okay, let's try to do something new and interesting. And like on the 3D printers, we don't have access. I don't have access to any of the experimental theoretical ones. So I sent him links to the ones that are available commercially and say, do the cool version of this.
Make it look better than this.
Make it look better than this. More.
That's very giving as a writer. Because like the artists, and if they're doing redundant, that's not going to keep you really into the project.
Well, and I do not write full script. I can, but I choose not to. I haven't worked that way in a long time. I have when I work with foreign artists. But if I have an artist I can talk to, I can email and communicate with, it's always my preference to write a very loose plot and then have the artist add to it. Because in many cases, like when we did the first arc, originally I had the general as a man. I had written it as a man, and he just drew it as a woman. And then actually that's pivotal to her story arc now. Is she's basically David Lauren as a woman growing up in the military, and it's why she sort of became this villainous persona. And so it's interesting to me. I can't even think of her as being a man now, but when I wrote it, she was a he, and he just drew it that way, and I was like, all right. And there've been a few twists and turns, and that's why I think this really is. It's been a collaboration, unlike where a lot of times we'll get scripts from writers, or like when I worked on the Power Rangers, you just write a script and send it in, and there's not any collaboration. It's just. But see, to me, comics is sort of this unique medium where you have this rival skill sets you can play with. And I think it's a waste. It's foolish to not take advantage of that.
And we've had a lot of happy accidents of our collaboration. I think that have turned out really well for the book and kind of made it something,
There's been a couple that I couldn't figure out, and there's actually I don't know if I ever told you this, but there's actually a scene in the first arc. I think it's in the 4th issue when he's getting out and he slides the card into the door to get through the door. I couldn't figure out how to make that sense as to why he would have a card, so I actually didn't write anything. And it's just like the loom of fate in Wanted. It doesn't make any sense, but you don't talk about it and you don't mention it. You gloss it over, and people kind of let it go. But,
so you went from doing Echoes, which is very horror, into you Born Only Smarter. Is that the description?
Well, it's Jason Bourne, but he knows who he is, and it's like him as it's brain over brawn. I mean, it's like the guy. I mean, David Lauren, I could kick his ass, and I'm a wuss. You know what I mean? So So to me, he's not a guy that would punch anyone.
Gotcha.
But he can, but he's always 5 or 6 moves ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
So
he's a genius.
that's the way he thinks, which is actually the hardest part to write, because I am by no means a genius, and it's very difficult to fake that.
Well, you're a physicist, though. You got a leg up on most people trying to write something similar.
But see, that's my rudimentary knowledge of science allows me to fake it like I'm a genius.
and it works.
And we try to.
The key is fake.
I try to help out by making him look either kind of mysterious, like you can't tell what he's thinking, or like a total smartass, like he knows that he is ahead of everybody
the little
else.
smirks and
So,
right. So, going from horror to something like this, was that an easy transition for you?
I'd say that it's a little bit of an adjustment, because you got to go from kind of more, in a sense, more simple artwork to the complicated machinery and settings of Think Tank. But otherwise, I really like transitioning to kind of the humor of Think Tank, away from the seriousness of Echoes. It was refreshing.
Yeah.
And I did draw a 4-issue mini of Solomon Kane over at Dark Horse between those 2 books. So
Plus you did the test, right?
yeah, and then I did the test.
Okay, I
yeah.
have to look up the Solomon Kane. I like Solomon Kane.
And there's he did a pilot season 1 shot called The Test.
The Test. Okay.
Yeah, Matt Hawkins and Josh Valkov. Yeah.
Oh,
Collaboration.
You guys were on that? Okay.
Yeah.
I wrote an outline.
Store owner.
I wrote an outline. Fialkov wrote the book, and he drew it.
That's a good segue. Let's talk about your talent hunt.
Okay.
I read an interview. I forget which magazine it was. So some of the stuff that you're getting and from some of the creators that they do the takeaway, like, oh, this isn't my best work, and what's some of the stuff that you just really don't want to see from a new creator when they're submitting work?
Well, you don't ever want to say this isn't my best work, because my first question is, then why are you wasting my time?
Got it.
Even if it's your worst work, you don't want to say that. And if it's your worst work, then why are you submitting it? Because there are not a lot of opportunities like this where you have a chance to actually get in front of someone who's hiring someone for a specific project.
Right.
I think, basic spell check is always good.
Yeah.
Making sure. I read one today, which I'm almost through reading all of these, that had Jackie, and he used Jackie and Sarah, and they weren't allowed to use those characters, but he referenced them. But he had different names for both the characters' last names. It was I don't even remember what it was, Jackie something and Sarah something, and they were wrong. And I read it a couple times to see if there was a reason for that, and there wasn't. He just clearly had not researched and didn't know any of these characters, and just so it's like, I'm not going to hire you to write for us if you don't even know what it's about.
Right. Yeah.
I think the mistake people make too is they focus too much on world and too little on character. I think the best stories, like if you took an alien invasion story, it's a big alien invasion.
Right.
The best story to me in an alien invasion is a story about one guy and his kid in that, and how it affects them and what they do about it. The broad sweeping stories always get lost, and they're less interesting. I mean, the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds, I thought was better than Independence Day. Now there was some wonky stuff in that movie.
Yeah.
But it's just the idea of that sort of family dynamic and those characters is more interesting to me. And like David Lauren is a character we're focusing on, and the people around him in this very complicated, convoluted world. And I think if you don't focus on him and his sort of personal story, you lose it. And I
get lost in a sea of everything else that's going on.
Yeah, and I think that is what happens when we get a lot of pitches. A lot of these pitches they're trying to build out these big worlds and tell these great stories. And I think when you need to pitch story and not world. I mean, and I think that's the biggest thing I would give as a takeaway. I mean, I look at Grant Morrison as a great idea guy. He's idea over character, and it works for him.
Right.
But he's an anomaly, really. And it's like when I read guys trying to do Grant Morrison, they don't pull it off. I've yet to read anyone trying to do Grant Morrison that pulls it off. But it's not that hard to pull off a character-driven story. You tell a basic character story about this person. Why is he doing what he does? Take something away and make it difficult for him, and see how he reacts in that situation. Sure. Yeah. And make their lives complicated and tell stories about that. And I think those are to me the great stories.
And that's what's going to bring the reader back to your book too.
Right.
Is having good characters, strong characters that they can relate to.
Yeah, they start getting emotionally invested in the characters, and they want to come back and see the circumstances that they're in. And that's good advice. Everybody should listen. I like to ask this when we have visitors and that are creators. What are you currently reading out there that you're really digging right now, and by who?
I just read The Underwater Welder, Jeff Lemire.
Jeff Lemire, yeah, great.
He's always great.
book.
What else? We
We were talking about that. I love Mark Waid's Daredevil. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's probably the only superhero comic I actually read. I'm not a big superhero guy. I like Snyder and Capullo on Batman. Batman's sort of the other superhero I'll try to read. I don't like Superman and the Avengers. I've never liked those characters. I find them difficult to relate to, you know. Trying to think, what else do I read? I read a lot of stuff, but I read so much of it all blends together.
Sure.
So for some reason, I'm a big Mark Waid fan.
Mark Waid does good stuff, and I'm a big Daredevil fan. So I like the Daredevil and Daredevil End of Days. That's superheroes I go right now as well. I love a lot of stuff that's coming out from Image.
Yeah.
Great company. We love them here. So
I mean, Darkness by Hein and Han actually is probably my, and I know I published that, so it's self-serving, but probably my favorite book. I think it's woefully underselling, and it's just this brilliantly dark satire, and I think it's brilliant, and it doesn't deserve the sales it has.
Okay.
Saga is good too. I like Saga. Mm-hmm.
It took me 3 issues to get into that, but I agree. Mm-hmm. I mean, by the 3rd issue, I was in. Yeah. But if I wasn't on the Image comp list, I don't know that I kept buying it.
I'm just jealous of that art.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah, Piano does good stuff, and from what I read, I think that's all done digitally. She does it all digitally, which
really,
yeah. No, you do yours traditionally.
Yeah.
Okay. See,
I'd say 80-90% depending on the page, but almost entirely.
They're like physical original.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See,
yeah.
Available on interiorpages.com.
Theinteriorpages.com.
Original art's a beautiful thing to collect, and you see these books that are done digitally, which I'm fine with things being done digitally, especially coloring. It looks great, but having original art is it's a good thing. I mean, we're going to lose some of that if everybody goes 100% digital. So
yeah,
it's good that you're keeping.
Thank you. Yeah. And there's just something for me about the feel of, of the paper and of the pens and the pencils and the brushes and stuff. So
a little tactile experience. You can translate that to holding a comic book as opposed to reading on your iPad, which I do both. I prefer.
I prefer the print too. I don't know if that's an age thing, because my kids don't read print.
No.
10 and 12. They read on their iPads.
Yeah, it's weird. I read on the iPad while I'm traveling. That's it.
It's convenient.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. So.
But I fear the day if it, because I can't imagine not getting our books in print.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't seem real to me. Like if it would only go digital. There's nothing like today. I got the books that are coming out in the next few weeks, and I was like, going through them, and it's just fun to feel them, and look at them, and it'd be weird if they were only digital. I think. I'm with you on that.
I like the bookshelf. I like to rack them. I mean, not just because I'm a retailer either.
Right.
I was a fan first.
Yeah.
So let's Ravine. Since we're talking about stuff that's getting ready to come out, Ravine is the new book from Stephen Sejic and Ron Mars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. We don't put out a lot of original graphic novels. I think we've only done 2 or 3. I'd have to really think about it to see what even the other ones were. We did Sunset, Echoes. Echoes was individual issues first.
That
wasn't an OGN.
Yeah.
We've only published 2 or 3 OGNs ever. And the reason why we did it this way is Stephen actually saw this as a series of these. Like he wants to do 10 of these.
Wow.
So I was like more like this crazy, massive, sweeping, epic story arc.
Yeah.
And and Ron came in and is working with him on it. I think it's brilliant. It's his best work.
Okay.
So I'm excited about it.
Well, yeah, we'll be able to hold that up there. We'll be able to get a shot of that for you guys too. Everybody buy that book. And Think Tank.
Think Tank.
Think Tank. We love Think Tank. So thanks guys for coming up.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.